Started. We're ready.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Nintendo Dads, episode 168, recorded on February 22nd, 2018. On tonight's episode, we welcome Justin Masson, the wandering, I don't even know what you are anymore, Justin, the Canadian Irishman. I don't know. Back to the show. We're just glad to have you back. And we're going to talk about tons of Nintendo rumors and all kinds of other stuff, too. Zach? Oh, yeah, that's right. Zach's not here. So somebody, please get me out of here and cue the music.
Music in post.
Music in post, perfect. That's right. Wandering off of the Irish hills, I guess we would say, Marty, I am back. Thank you very much, sir, for that wonderful introduction. It's great to be back. I have not seen you guys for like a month now. So yeah, this is fantastic.
Well, we all can't gallivant off to the English countryside. I mean, you know.
I was in Poland, not the English countryside.
Or Polish countryside. I'm sorry.
There you go. Fair enough. But ladies and gentlemen, welcome. This is the Nintendo Dads podcast, your place for all things Nintendo.
Uh-oh.
Unless the screen freezes.
And Dad was first. G tribute himself.
All right,
the man with
We heard nothing of what you said for the last 30 seconds.
Ah, you're kidding me.
It was comedy gold, I'm sure.
Oh, it really was. What did you hear last?
I don't know. You were
Thanks
like
for
this.
having me.
You were just frozen like this for a while.
Okay, well, let's try it again, shall we? It is February 23rd, and welcome to the Nintendo Dads podcast. Again, my name is Justin Masson, your co-host or your main host for today. Joined by me are the two of the coolest and best podcast hosts in the entire podcast landscape. Ladies and gentlemen, they do not get better than these two gentlemen, or if they do, I just haven't found them yet. But let me first start off by the King and Emperor of VG Tribune, Mr. Jesse Waldak. Buddy, how are you today?
Pretty good. I've been went from my full-time job to my part-time job to here, so I haven't had a time to play hardly anything today.
Fair enough. Very busy man indeed. The Ubering is busy in Casey, is it?
Yeah, except for this wasn't Ubering. This was the delivering for Amazon.
Ah, yes. Do you when you get up to just like let's pause on that for a second. When you're delivering for Amazon and you bring that box to the door and you ring the bell or you don't know it's there, do you just before you ring the bell shake that box as hard as you can to try and figure out what's in that box?
I don't. I can't speak for other drivers.
I'd like to see like a Jesse like video of you doing that and just kind of like shake, shake, shake. Maybe it's glass. Shake, shake, shake. Maybe it's shoes. And then ring the bell and just like walk away. I think that's what the fans want to see.
No, I don't think anyone wants to see that.
Fair enough. But a man who knows how to shake more than just his box, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Marty Estes, the king of the deep south. What is going on, buddy?
There's a whole lot of shaking going on over here, baby.
That's not a bad Elvis impression. That's quite.
Thank you. I thank you very much. Now, man, I gotta say, I'm glad to have you back.
Oh, thank you.
Even if you did say, pre-show that you have pages and pages of notes.
I do
for us, and I'm kind of worried about that. I'm kind of scared.
Fair enough.
But here's the thing: anything that you have for us tonight can't possibly be as bad as a YouTube mashup of Evanescence and the Donkey Kong rap.
Oh, that was fantastic. I thought that was wonderful.
I felt really sorry for Amy Lee.
Yeah, I mean that probably doesn't bode well for her. I think it bodes well probably more for Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong fans, but not for Evanescence. So, yeah, for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, check out our Twitter account. We did retweet it. It's a great mashup of the Donkey Kong rap and Evanescence coming together. It'll be like mind melting for a little bit, or mind melting for a little bit as well. But yes, that is, I am back. Joining or missing us today is Zach Erickson. My understanding of the situation, guys, and I don't know if you're aware of this, Zach heard that I had notes. He knew I was coming, and he was very concerned because if there is a man on the show that runs his mouth constantly and doesn't know what he's talking about, it's usually Zach Erickson. So he was
I was thinking you were about to throw my name out there.
No, not quite.
Not yet.
Not yet, but guys, let's jump into this thing, and then we'll start talking about notes in a couple minutes. So yeah, let's do that.
Do it.
Okay.
I'm adding in post. There we go. And of course, the news and our notes are brought to you by
Patreon.com and all of our wonderful, wonderful patrons over there at patreon.com/Nintendo Dads. We want to say thanks to our newest Patreon, Dan Caparello, who also sent us in a question that we're going to try to get to here at the end of the show. Fans, we love it when you interact with us. Also, go check out over there the new lens feature. If you go to our Patreon page, you can see pictures of things that we are doing during the day, like buying popsicles for my kids when they're sick.
Nice. Yeah.
Maybe tomorrow, just a little photo of a game that I'm playing that maybe I'm not supposed to talk about yet.
There you go.
Just a little photo.
There you go.
Who knows?
I like it.
I know.
It.
Fridays get a little crazy.
Fridays are crazy.
Today,
crazy.
As you hear this, I always forget we record Thursday night and it goes over into Friday. But yeah, thanks to Dan and thanks to all of our patrons for making this thing possible. May I insert a word here that Retro Rewind is coming up really soon. Final Fantasy VI on your Super NES Classic or other devices that you might be able to find that on. You need to be playing that. If you don't play at least through the opera scene, Jesse is going to cry sad, sad tears.
He will. And
so do it for Uncle Jesse, and join us next month for our episode when we record. I love this game, and so I'm going to have a lot to say about it.
When you said they're doing it for Uncle Jesse, I just immediately thought of Full House reference. Like, I just picture John Stamos being like, "Hey, do it for John Stamos."
See, that shows where the generation, because the generation older would jump to Dukes of Hazzard.
Ooh, the Dukes of Hazzard, hey?
The Duke boys.
Yeah. Now, hey, speaking of Patreon, before we head off of this, we actually recently started a new feature or vignette on Patreon. It is Q&A with a Nintendo Dad. We're going to do a monthly feature. And this last month, big thanks to people who submitted the questions, and I did a 30-minute Q&A, kind of Ask Me Anything session. And that video is available up on our Patreon page. So if you are a Patreon member, you can go check that out and take a view. And we're going to continue this methodology and video series. I thought it was a lot of fun, and we're going to keep doing it as well. Also, this weekend we'll be streaming some of your Super Mario Odyssey Balloon World things that you submit to us. We're going to have a crack at that. But let's jump into it. Let's jump into our news and our notes, shall we? So, gentlemen, let's talk about the notes, shall we? I'm gonna lead into this one a bit. Now, these aren't drastic things, but I will say. So, I of course listen to the podcast, right? I'm not on the podcast. I listen to it. I'm excited. I download it. I'm going to work. I nearly pulled over during one of your sessions and screamed at you and Zach, Marty, because you were speaking nothing but pure madness regarding the Nintendo 3DS and the fact that you wanted that system dead and buried. This was very shortly after the Nintendo investors meeting, which, yes, Jesse, I was very upset I was not on because I love the numbers and talking about that. You guys are mad. You're absolutely mad that the Nintendo 3DS needs to be dead, because I need you to take off your fanboy hats for a second and understand that the 3DS is a viable console from a business perspective. And in their investor meeting, they talked about keeping the 3DS alive and going for first-generation game players such as your children and kids, because it has one of the best backlog catalogs there is available for games. The 3DS is not going anywhere. It is not dead and buried. You will continue to see games in 2018, and you're mad if you think it's dead.
Okay.
Counter?
Well, here's the thing. Maybe I am mad. Maybe I'm using it in a different way. And we talked about this a little bit pre-show. Maybe I'm just angry about two things, or maybe worried about one thing and angry about another. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
I'm worried that a continued focus on the 3DS will split Nintendo's dev teams which they recently combined, within the last couple of years to work on games for the Switch, supposedly. We'll split them, and we will get some ideas that, quite frankly, would be really good on the Switch, but they'll end up on the 3DS.
So here's my question.
So, like, let me give a great example. I really don't think that another Mario title needs to come out on the 3DS. I mean, Mario 3D Land is good. New Super Mario Brothers 2 is good, but if I'm getting a new 3D Mario or a new 2D Mario, I want to play that on my Switch.
Okay.
Like, I think most people would say that, and I take that and I will pull from Article 9 of the Chicken Wiggle argument. All right.
Can I just ask what the other 8 articles are?
When our good friend Jules was disappointed by the sales of that, which he should have been, because he put his heart and soul into that game. 9 out of 10 people, which is why I said Article 9. 9 out of 10 people online that I saw talk about Chicken Wiggle said the same thing. It should have been on Switch.
Right.
Now, to say that, does it ignore the fact that all of his dev time up to that point had been on the 3DS, and asking him to kind of completely rebuild from scratch or whatever to put it on Switch would have been ridiculous? And but again, my worry is we're going to get some first party games that really should have been on Switch, and we end up splitting our resources here. You get what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, and I get that, right? We saw that during the development of the Wii U, right? We had 3DS games. I mean, I think the argument was if you were a 3DS owner and a Wii U owner in the last 3 years, you had a pretty steady flow of games, right? Between kind of like, the Wii U might be drought for 3 months, but by the way, there's a couple games in the 3DS. So bouncing back and forth, you were fine if you were lucky enough to be a 2-console kind of household that way. But I think that Jules is a great example. So kudos to that, because I think that is a prime example. But I think so Jules did a lot of work. I think Nintendo dropped the ball on a lot of things, right, as well, in relation to promotion, right, in relation to that. We can argument that part around. But I think that the thing that we cannot argue about is that there is a huge install base, right? 4 or 5 times higher than what the current Nintendo Switch's install base is, right? And the price point for the console to come in at, in some cases, less than $100, is an easy entry into it. And we also can't argue that it has I think, probably one of the best back catalogs, not only in cartridge form, but also on an eShop or virtual access for players to be able to get their hands on games. Now, in relation to the splitting the development, I agree with that, but we're not seeing enough games, in my opinion, to warrant the worry of a split development, right? If we were seeing, and we're not seeing them coming out of Nintendo specifically, right? So the last game we had from Nintendo specifically was actually Metroid Samus. Now, that game was actually handled by a different development company, as I recall. It wasn't actually handled by Nintendo specifically, so you're not splitting your dev team, right? Before that, I think you had Miitomo, Pikmin, sure, maybe those were, right? But we do have to remember at that point the Switch was kind of just coming to life. The 3DS was still a mainstay. I think, and we had a bit of a conversation about this during pre-show here, you will still see games for the 3DS. Absolutely you will. And I'm willing to bet you that we will still see another major mainline Nintendo title in here in 2018 for the 3DS. Yes, a lot of people move over to the Switch. But I mean, I guess the argument would be, would you ever say, "Oh, that game's on the 3DS, I'm not going to play it"? If the next Legend of Zelda Link Between Worlds comes out and it's on the 3DS, are you not going to play it because it's there?
No, I'm going to play it, but I think that the argument is fair to make that there are going to be people who miss it,
right?
Yeah, because they've already put down the 3DS. And they're not picking it back up.
I think my counter argument to all this, when we talked about it last, was, again, it normally takes 2 to 3 years to make a decent game. They've had these games in the pipeline. They're not going to just stop it and start over on the Switch. They'll finish the 3DS work. But I would guess it's probably near like October, November. They likely did not start anything on the 3DS. Anything new at that point would have been on the Switch and Switch only.
Yeah, so you're going to see a cycle. You're going to see a cycle in 2018.
And if I recall, my prediction was Nintendo will still put out games up through this year, but won't do anything after, into 2019. Yeah. Expecting third parties will still do so, but Nintendo themselves will not.
Here's the deal:
we still have 10 months left to see if that's true.
I think that it does have plenty of merit to stand on as far as a backlog, right?
Mm-hmm.
But how do we sell a 3DS to somebody and tell them, hey, right now the only game that we know that's coming out from Nintendo in 2018 is Detective Pikachu?
You tell them it's got a 7-year-old game. You tell them it's a 7-year-old backlog.
But that's exactly.
I agree with that.
And if you include DS games,
I agree with that for parents who are technologically able.
Right, and then
when you live in an area like mine, and a lot of people aren't, and a lot of people don't care to be, especially about video games, and then they buy a 2DS or a 3DS, and like a year later, Nintendo says, "Hey, we're done. Move on to the Switch." Then what happens is, well, I'm not ever buying another Nintendo system again. Nintendo did us wrong, and so
this argument can be thrown around at the end and start of every generation. If you're going to buy a 7-year-old console, yes, you can expect things to die. But we have a 7-year-old backlog. Plus, if you think of DS games that are backward compatible, you can go back 13 years.
Right?
Yeah. So anyone buying it new for the first time can't think about it in terms of future games. They got to think about it in terms of past games.
And I totally get that.
Just like buying a game on launch, buying a new console on system day one, you're not buying it for the backlog because there isn't any. You're buying it on the promise and hope for new games.
And the thing is
there's a time.
I guess where I'm saying
is you got to cut that off and go the other way.
Most of the people that I'm talking about, though, they're not even going to know that the 3DS is 7 years old. They're just going to see it. They're just going to know that their kids asked for one and they're going to buy it. And the reason I say this is because I talk to parents, and that because parents know that I play video games and stuff, they'll come to me and be like, okay, so my kid's asking for this, or they're asking for an Xbox, or they've said they take an Xbox or a PS4. Which one do you think I should get? Because and there were people toward the end of the Wii U's life cycle that I was like, you don't want to buy a Wii U right now. You don't need to do that.
Right. And that's kind of almost, I think responsibility is not the right word, but that's the closest thing I can think of. Those of us in the know have that responsibility to inform those who don't know and want to.
I agree. But
and that's part of what we're here for.
When you're talking about a console too, you're talking about usually a multiple $100 purchase, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about, and that's big money. It's kind of like when you're trying to go buy a car, and I know that a car outpaces that by several $1,000s, and lots of money and lots of commitment. But when I went car shopping back a month ago to buy a new car, I think the word that we would use here that we don't use a lot is the onus. The onus was on me to make the right decision, to do my research and see, is this car going to be the one for me?
But at least with a car, if it's 7 years old or new.
Well, that's true. That's true. But again, what you were saying is right, Jesse. It comes down to us. It comes down to people like me and you who will have those conversations with people, that people know they can come to us. But it also comes down to a little bit of consumer too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not just saying that there's people out there just buying 3DSs willy nilly, not caring about what year it is or not knowing what year it is. But I do have some of that worry. They're saying right now it's good, and yes, they sold. What was the figure that came out today that they sold? It was high sales in January or something like that.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact numbers, but something along the lines of January 3DS sales was the highest January since of 2013, which is almost 2 years since their launch.
Which, I mean, again, if you think about it, if you think of, and I, there's a toy shop not too far from me where I usually get my games, or I do a pre-order, and I walk in there and they have a pretty good wall display, right, of 3DS games, and then they have like the Switch games, and they have all this, and you look at it, and if you're an unbeknownst parent, you walk in, your kids are like, I want the Nintendo thingy. Right, your mom turns around, looks at it, and the price for the Switch is like $400. Right, you turn over here, and the 3DS is $150. You're like, so I can get that and about 5 games for the same price as this thing, right? And this seems more durable. This seems more accessible, right? I think that's really where it comes in, and I think when Nintendo is riding a high like it is with the Switch, and Nintendo's back in the conversation. And it's kind of the cool thing to have, parents, maybe, or kids looking to get into games. I really think that the 3DS is that entry level that Kimishima talked about. That's the point where we want to start people. We want our kids to start with the DS and then transition onto the Switch. And I think that's where those sales will continue.
Yeah, and then that argument you just said about I can buy this or this for the same amount. We've been saying that since 1982 when it was a flood of garbage games out there in the bargain bin, and and of course 95% of the people are non-gamers at this point and don't, and even the store clerks don't know what the hell's going on. But the argument is why buy this one $30 game when I can buy 6 $5 games? Well, and so it was devalued the $30 game, which rightfully should have been, but it wouldn't sell unless they dropped 2, and then that caused the crash of '83.
Yeah, and I don't know about you guys, but my heart when we were in not only in Poland, but when we were in Barcelona for Christmas, we were kind of like wandering around, walking through the streets, and very often, we used to see kids that were on 3DSs walking around. I don't know if you guys saw it very often, or they kind of have, the clamshell flipped open, they're walking around and playing games. And I recently saw more and more kids walking with Nintendo Switches in their hand, like playing and walking at the exact same time. And I don't know about you, but as a parent, my heart just about broke with the thought that you're going to trip on a curb and that thing is going to hit the ground and smash everywhere. And yet the 3DS being a more durable, a less expensive system, kind of allows for the rugged wear and tear that kids put on their devices, at least. And if you even think about the 3DS Wedge or the doorstop is a great example of kind of like the Fisher-Price DS. So I don't know, like I still think it's just such an entry point for younger kids. I feel like I think we've all probably said our bit on that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. And like, well, I guess here's a question that I had during this whole conversation. Okay. That being said, and seeing that the 3DS is viable still, is it okay to move on? Do you feel like it's okay for like honestly at this point, I still own a 2DS XL, right? I have games I need to finish on it.
You have a new one also.
What?
Like that's a new one. That is less than a year old.
Yeah, it's less than a year old, but the Switch killed it for me. Like, and it's not that I don't want to play it, because when Samus Returns came out, that's all I played for like 2 weeks. Yeah. So, and I like the Switch sat there, and I would pick it up every now and then, or play a game of Mario Kart with my kids or whatever. But I would always want to go back to Samus.
Yeah, as I said, I think both in the pre-show and I mentioned it last week, the reason for the heightened amount of 3DS sales is because, as you mentioned, we have a new hardware, 2DS XL, and we have special editions out there. So so I think people are buying the hardware for the sake of buying the new hardware. But I don't think they're going to want to play the games, and that's something that we'll have to see later on to see if it's true or not. Because a lot of people, again, we've said this already, but a lot of people want to buy the game on the Switch, but they still want that 3DS hardware.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point, right? Like, one things that Nintendo is doing relatively well, and Jesse, you make a completely sound argument there, and I am very interested to see. And I guess maybe we could probably do some research on this. I'd be interested to see what the sales numbers were for August in regards to Metroid. I'm sure we can research that relatively easily. But obviously, Detective Pikachu coming out here in March is going to be a huge Huge game, I think, for Nintendo. But that's the thing. Nintendo is creating these variants, right? So we recently saw.
I think Shellshock Prime in the chat thinks that Detective Pikachu is going to be like one of the last big 3DS game.
I would probably argue that it probably will be one of the last. But I don't think it will be the last. I think we are going to still see this thing. We were talking in the pre-show. I think you're going to see a couple games announced at E3. I know there are some indie developers who are working on some content right now for the 3DS. Again, when you think of just install base, right, you have over 65 million 3DSs out there, or DSs. That is a high install base no matter what. Right, like you may be having a hot system, which is the Switch, no doubt, but you still have an install base which is almost 4 times to 5 times larger than it. So you do have devices in hands. If you can make a game that's compelling enough for individuals to put down said Switch and pick up 3DS and purchase, then you're winning.
But
right?
They also have to know that 65 million units sold doesn't mean 65 million players, especially with all these collector's editions. People are buying multiple units and just keeping them on the shelves.
Yeah, and that is a little bit of my point I was making there earlier, Jesse, is Nintendo has become very smart in this, right? Let's continue our sales with variants, right? So you just recently purchased your Super NES Classic one. We've seen the Yellow Detective Pikachu one. We've seen a different variant for the Detective Pikachu. We've seen the refresh on the DS line, right? I mean,
Pokeball.
I was talking the Pokeball. I was saying earlier in the pre-show that I was tempted to purchase an EU 2DS, because it looked real nice, but also for me to play EU games over here. Right. So
Estuardo in the chat says Marty looks mad.
I'm not. No, I'm not mad. I'm actually, what I've been doing is somebody said Metroid Samus Return sales figures, so I've been looking that up and trying to figure it out.
So that's not your scowling look. That's your concentration look.
That's my concentration look. I just, my wife says sometimes I always look mad, and so maybe that's true.
And I think
my daughter has a different expression for that, but basically your default face is
RBF.
Yeah.
No, I'm trying not to. Let me just throw this number out here. 420,000 units sold worldwide.
420,000.
Samus Returns,
which I think is pretty good for a Metroid game.
It is. But here's my argument with that. Is it because that's one of the only new games that was available on the 3DS?
Well, I think the other
because Metroid is one of those weird...
I want it to be because it's Metroid.
Metroid is one of those weird franchises that don't sell well in Japan. It's basically a North American market, and the rest of the world doesn't care. So that's why I said almost half a million. That's why I said 500,000 units is good for a Metroid game, because
North American markets and European markets carried Metroid.
Yeah, not a huge. By the way, this is Justin making tea again this morning. That's what happens when you get in the show. Can you guys hear that kettle going? By the way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to not be in here while it's going. Then bear with me. And that's a little bit of the argument there, right? Is because. So I mean, that's the challenge. This is why I think Detective Pikachu is a very interesting litmus test to see really where the sales numbers are associated with it. But I mean, here's the thing. So I did go on my rant here, and I also want people who are like, Marty and Jesse and Justin are just fighting. No, we're just having a healthy argument. We're having a healthy conversation. That's what friends do. Simmer down. We're not canceling the show. We're just having a conversation. We're not like some of those other podcasts. You know who you are. I'm just kidding. But,
no, I like pushback. Actually, I need it.
And now, in all fairness, here, Marty, I was very much like you. I love my 3DS. There are so many games I have my 3DS. The moment the Switch hit, I transitioned over to it because it led with fantastic titles. Again, you go where the games are, right?
Right.
But when Samus came out, what did I do? I put down my Switch and I picked up my 3DS, right? Because hey, that's where that game is. Yeah. I'm really passionate.
And that's pretty much what I'm doing with Radiant Historia. That's what I'm playing. So because of that, I'm not playing Dragon Quest Builders because I can't juggle two systems like that.
Yeah,
I have a hard time juggling two games on the same system. If I'm playing a game, that's mostly what I'm playing.
Right. The other thing, again, we have to just realize that Nintendo is a company. They want to make money. They still make money on the 3DS. They will still make 3DS. Pure, simple economics, right? And they are not going to just simply say well, the Switch is doing really well. Let's kill this thing that has been basically kept us alive for the last 4 years. Well, the Wii U died, right? They're not just going to cut that. Like that's a pillar of your organization.
Just like they tried killing the GBA, but it wouldn't die once the DS took off.
Now they will eventually, right? It'll eventually come to an end. But when you're only 1 year into your new product life cycle, no. I think 2019 is when you see that pass away. That's been a long rant on the DS, guys.
No, that's
Final
good.
Thoughts?
So that's good.
So that's one bullet. How many other bullets do you have?
12. I mean, we're fine here, right?
All right. Yeah. We've got all night to podcast. That's cool.
I've been gone for like 4 weeks, guys. I have so much to talk about.
And have you noticed we've had like 4 shows in the hour 30 to hour 45 range?
Yeah. Mm-hmm,
so this one will be 3 hours to compensate.
So I don't think it's a Justin thing. I think it's a hosting thing. But we'll talk about that later. That's why Zach's not here.
I will say this to close. All of this talk about the 3DS, right? All of this talk about 2DS, 3DS. And if someone gave me or if I had the chance to buy a white and orange one today, I'd do it. I'm just saying, because I've always wanted that one, right? Yeah. And if there's somebody out there who just has the white and orange one, and you say, I just want the black and blue one, and I will trade you straight up, let's make that happen. All right?
Yeah,
let's make that happen.
Let's figure that one out.
Yeah, Will, the owner of Easy Tribune, actually replied to my tweet when I said, copying my ambassador certificate to the 4th system. He said you should buy a 2DS XL because it's awesome.
Nice.
I'm like, I just bought this one.
I'm just going to transfer over to my desktop here, so 1 second. So I'm going to drop the call, and then can you guys rejoin me?
Or you can rejoin us.
Yeah, that works too. I'll be right back.
Well, now that he's gone, let me tell you how I really feel. No. That's good. That's good. Good, lively discussion about a system that will most definitely be dead at the end of this year. Anyway, now that Justin's not here to offer a rebuttal for that. Hey, Justin.
Hey, we back? We're good?
Totally didn't say anything about the 3DS being dead at the end of this year while you're gone.
Son of a... how's my audio sound? Sorry, I know this is...
Sounds pretty good.
I'm not using the app. I'm using the desktop.
Gotcha.
So I just want to check my... Audio sounds all right?
Little echoey, but that's the nature of your room.
Yeah, probably, exactly.
You sound like a velvet fog.
Oh, you're so kind. You're so kind. All right, so my I guess final notes. I'm not going to give a lot more notes. This actually one's that you deliberately, Marty.
Okay, come on.
I hate to be this guy. Dandara.
Come on with it, because I'm ready to have this fight.
Hashtag get good.
Hashtag garbage game.
Oh.
Hashtag should have made it where I can run around and play like a normal platformer.
See, and I would argue that I think it's a lot of fun. I'm having a really great time with it. And I like the fact that it's different. I like the fact that it's not a normal platformer that lets you run around.
I would love it if there was the 2D movements where I could actually move back and forth, but they use the salt as a way to get on walls and ceilings and stuff like that. And it just looks to me like that's what that game was designed for, but I don't know. That was totally not what I was expecting. And I may get back to it later, but there was this point where I had been playing and I'd gotten pretty far and I died, and then I realized how far I would have to go back because of the base camp situation.
And here's the thing I will say, that I will agree with you in a couple of those things. I'm joking. And just again, people, Marty and Justin are not fighting. We're having a healthy conversation.
No, we're not talking about Donkey Kong here.
Yeah, no, those would be fighting words, right? I think, I don't have the power to fire a volunteer, but I just about tried to figure out a way to do it. With Dandara, I would argue there are some flaws, and very much like you, I would get very far, and I actually found myself panicking a lot of times to try and find a base camp. I don't have a lot of life. I'm somewhere new. I need to find that base camp. I've got a lot of salt. So there are some flaws like that. There needs to be more of those things. I really liked the mechanic of the bouncing, of not running. I thought that was a very unique approach to a Metroidvania game. That's something different. Like we played a ton of Metroidvania. Show me something different, and I think it showed me something different. I love the art style. Again, I'm a very, very artsy kind of person that way. I like that pixelated character designs, but then like the background was a little bit different. It's a tough game. It is as tough as nails. And I know Gary Gray was on here last week talking about Labo. It is a tough game. It ramps up. And it's a game that I play in very short bursts. Like I'll play for an hour and I'll get somewhere and be like, okay, I'm good. I need to breathe. Like it gives me that kind of anxiety that sometimes you get playing a Metroidvania game. But I do think that the learning curve is steep. And I think the lack of base camps hurts it. But other than that, I've really enjoyed it. As a 2D platformer, I've been playing that. I've been really, really enjoying it. I was actually very shocked when you were like, no dice. I got rid of it.
I think as a package for that game, and I think I said this last week too, that like graphically, sound wise, everything clicks. I love that. I love the whole aesthetic of it and the presentation. But when it comes down to gameplay, and maybe it's just backlog overload or everything, right? In a way, but like I need games that when I play them, I relax and I don't feel panicked like that. And I mean, I'm fine with challenge, but it just felt a little unfair. It felt a little too stilted in the we're just making it difficult to draw it out. Yeah. You get what I'm saying? Like,
yep.
Like we want to make this game last, so we're going to make it really difficult. So you have to replay sections. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I would definitely.
Maybe I just have crap taste in video games, and that would totally be a thing too.
Yeah, you know what? I don't think so, because I think it's funny because you and I very often have the same taste in video games. So that's one of the reasons why it's still one of those things where if you like a game, typically I like a game. So this is one of the things. I mean, other than obviously Donkey Kong.
Yeah, it's you and I that are the opposites.
Yeah, when you do your here's what I'm playing, I usually like zone out. I totally like go get another cup of tea. I might search Twitter, and then come back and I'm like, it's a puzzle game. Yeah, no, I'm good, thanks. So it was a little bit shocking, but I enjoyed it. That's my own opinion. But we're allowed to have opinions.
Picross E15.
Yeah, exactly.
And total disclosure, I may go back and play it again. Right?
Yeah.
Probably when I thin out my backlog. Like I was looking through my Switch today and I was like, okay, so here are like 5 games that I can finish right now, like within the next week. And I need to do that so that I can just go ahead and be free of them.
Yes.
And like, because it's like Owlboy, right? Mm-hmm. I love Owlboy, but I know that when I play it and when I beat it, I'm probably never going to play it again.
Yeah. And that's
or at least for a while.
Yeah, and that's an interesting conversation statement right now. I know we haven't dove into news here. We're just having maybe just a general conversation about a lot of things. This is what happens when I'm gone and Zach's not here. We just meander our conversations. But like backlogs, we are just less than a year into this thing, and we already have tremendous backlogs.
I think I've got 3 or 4 games on the Switch I bought and haven't played yet.
Yeah, like is that not ridiculous? I've gotten to a point where I've kind of I was thinking about and hear me on this one. What do you guys think? Like, and this is my own personal thing. I was going to think about doing is like a month backlog challenge, where we don't pick up anything new. We're not playing anything new. It is just I need to clear, and you choose 3 games or whatever, and you're like I clear these games, and then I archive them and I'm done.
Yes, I'm all for that.
Right, and then it could be kind of like a updates on backlog challenge. I don't know.
The bad thing about it though is like for me, I can pick up 3 that I can clear, in 20 hours or less. Poor Jesse over here it's all RPGs.
Yeah. He's buried in it.
In games like the Lady Layton game and the Ace Attorney game, are games I buy it. If I don't get to it right away, I'm probably not going to get to it, and they will just remain backlog.
Yeah.
And if I do focus on trying to do a backlog, more games will come in that'll just become a new backlog.
That's a fair point. Right,
I
rather enjoy in our chat here. Quill331 says Jesse is always sassier when Zach isn't around.
And Shellshock Prime says sassy Jesse is the best Jesse.
There you go. See, this is a good show already.
I think what you need to do is just pick up an Amazon shift before the podcast and get riled up from almost being late.
Right.
I love it. I love
It
it.
doesn't help that it was like a misting and light rain the entire time I was outside.
That's, misting and light rain is all it is in Ireland. That's pretty consistent every day.
Well,
Like,
at least it wasn't like our weather on Monday where we literally had thunder sleet,
that's gross.
which I've
Gross.
never heard of that before. I've heard of thunder snow, but never thunder sleet. And my son says only in Kansas.
Yeah. So a couple other quick news items here. I'm going to just say it really quickly, and then I'm going to move on. We don't need to linger on it. Obviously, video games are being associated with violence in the world right now. So I do suspect that we'll be seeing a lot of balloons dropped in random locations throughout your city for the next several weeks, thanks to Super Mario Odyssey. Of course, video games influence every decision we make. So
Are they going to be followed by a horrific clown?
no, just balloons that you randomly find in a
Okay.
level and that you have to hide and seek at the same time.
Just a short, fat Italian man is going to be running around everyone's
Yeah.
town, dropping balloons with your face on them.
Yeah, that's super irritating. I'm just going to move on from that. That was it. It's not a political show, but that one irritated me. So let's jump into the news, shall we? Let's talk about some stuff.
Sure.
Now that we've delayed that by almost 45 minutes, Marty, what's up on the docket?
So this week, again, Nintendo's kind of taking a little bit of a backseat right now, which leads me to think they're working on some things, possibly have some new announcements here soon, but not a lot of news out this week, except for a couple of things we do want to highlight. The first of which, and I think the biggest of which, being that the Super Mario Odyssey free update dropped today, which includes Luigi's Balloon World, as well as 3 new costumes and 2 new filters for the camera mode, which are super cool. I don't know if you've been out there and you tried them out yet, guys, but I love the coin filter. Super cool.
I was watching Andre's live stream last night. He had an early version of it before it went live for everyone else, and he was having fun with the neon one.
Oh yeah, the neon one's really cool too. I was playing around in the Mushroom Kingdom today and was getting some really good shots. I want to share a couple tomorrow, but I just thought it was the coin one. It looks like, the figures embossed. I had this picture of like Mario with the Peach's castle behind him, like on top of a hill, and kind of zoomed it in, and it just looked neat. But the main thing is not those filters and not the costumes, which, by the way, are ridiculously priced. The 3 costumes that you can get are the knight armor. You can also get the musician's outfit, which really is just a palette swapped version of the New Donk City suit. And you can also get like a beach outfit, which has a Hawaiian shirt with sunshine or with shines on it from Super Mario Sunshine, and like glasses and things like that. The musician's outfit will run you 1,500 coins, and then it just goes up from there. Like the beach outfit, I think, is 2,500 coins, and the armor is 3,000 for each piece.
Now, as a reminder, these are not coins that you are purchasing with microtransactions. These are coins that you're collecting in the game. There is no actual out-of-your-pocket money.
But it sounds like coins can also be acquired by participating in the balloon part.
Correct.
Right. And therein lies the biggest part of this, I think, because you can get coins not just for playing the balloon, finding people's balloons and in those levels, but you can get coins for the more skillfully you hide your balloon, and the less people are able to find it, the more coins you get.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So Justin, you've fiddled around with this?
I have. I played it when it first came out. I think just because of the time zones, I think you guys were all asleep and I was waking up and I saw the update. So I jumped on and filmed a little bit of it, and it's on our YouTube channel. You can check that out. Just a quick tour of it. And actually when I was waiting on pre-show, waiting for my MacBook to reload, I was playing some levels. I really enjoy it. One of the things there are some really good people at hiding stuff. I'm going to say that right now. Some other ones, it's kind of like that's the right level of difficulty. I wish there was a better way, and I guess the way you determine that is by how many coins you have to spend to do it. But I wish there was an easier way to just search by friends. Like right now, it's you have to submit a code, which is fine. Well, no, that's not fine. But you can submit a code to do challenges. But if I was like, hey, I have all my friends, I have a friend list, that Nintendo. Whoever has Odyssey, I want to be able to highlight like, hey, there's Marty's. I want to go find Marty's. You know what I mean? Like,
they already do that with the leaderboards,
right? But they don't do that with the balloon.
Right. But I'm saying that they have that data. It should be easy to do.
Yeah, they have the infrastructure to do. They're just choosing not to. Right. And I don't now, guys. Did you notice that? Because there's that little list you can choose, like whose balloon you're going to go after. Those people are not your friends, correct? Those are just random people. Right.
Yeah. So when I was playing earlier,
I think that's a friend of my list.
When I pulled it up earlier and was playing, I was totally not finding, friends. Like I was just in a level, and when you're say whatever kingdom you're in, it brings up a list of hidden balloons.
Yeah.
That are there, and so I happened to be in the I know I'm going to get this wrong, the beach kingdom, not the. Not the first one you go to, but the second one where you fight the octopus thing. I just cannot think the name of it.
That's okay.
Right now. But anyway, I was there, and that's where I hid my first balloon. But I was playing against some of the others, and finding those, and it was a lot of, run across the top of the water with one of those, acceleration flowers, and then dive down as far as you can and get the balloon. You'll have like seconds left, or whatever. One of the things I really think is clever about this, though, is that if you fail at the task, it does allow you to look around, and see if it's even in your area. So know how close you got before you're able to try again.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I think we also include that in that, like the arrow, like, hey, it's 30 meters this way and 20 meters, right? And they kind of give you those indicators, and it's up or it's left. So I think they do a lot of ways to encourage you, and it is that kind of like addictive, like one more try. And the fact that they can be so short is kind of a nice bonus to it as well, right? It's 30 seconds, go find it. It really does get you to kind of explore the level a little bit differently.
I wonder once they get some data on the difficulty, if they're going to add that as a filter similar to what they did with Mario Maker levels.
Yeah, I wonder about that, right? Like, I definitely think this is a baby version down of like a Mario Maker in some ways, right? Like it is, we're going to create a level, we're going to share a level, you go try it, and create achievements surrounding it. But I do think it's interesting. I think it's interesting. I think it's fun. Love it. And again, for those of you that are unaware, it is a free update. Now, the only caveat to that is that you do have to have completed the game. And when we're saying completed, it is the minimum amount of stars required to beat Bowser.
Yeah, you have to get the credit roll.
Yeah, there you go. I have to get a credit roll and then be able to. Because I know my daughter, she's super excited. She's like, "Oh, can I do it on my profile?" It's like, you have not beaten the game, so no. So we had to do it on mine to play. So, but I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's definitely one of those good opportunities to play with kids as well.
I haven't had a chance to play it yet, but the only thing I think they should have done differently that would have made it better is Luigi is not the right person for this to be the spokesperson. Tingle. It should be Tingle. He has experience with balloons.
He is a balloon man himself, is he not? Nice. Marty, what else in our news?
Well, hopefully you like a heap and dose of rumors, because there was a huge one served up by mostly right, sometimes right, Emily Rogers this week, where she said on Resetera, or Reset Era, I don't even know how you say it. I've only seen it in print, and I don't go anywhere else. I just go to one Nintendo site. So it looks like etc. to me, except it starts with reset. So that's why I say it that way. Here's what she says, though. Big deal. A Smash Brothers title will be announced and released for Switch later this year.
I think it falls into the category of duh.
But you know what, though?
I don't know how duh it is, though. But she did clarify later in another tweet, and I'm going to pull this up so that I'm sure about what she said was that she's not sure if it's a new title or a deluxe or like a complete version. Here's what she says. Side note, to clarify, I never said whether it was a sequel or a port. I only said they've been preparing an announcement for Smash Brothers title on Switch. I don't know whether it's a sequel or a deluxe definitive port.
And that's fair, but I think I've said in the past that this is the perfect game to launch with the online infrastructure.
Oh, yeah.
So, that's why I'm thinking this has kind of almost been written in stone already. We just don't know what version, if it's going to be a third version of 4 or if it's going to be a 5.
Can I be really honest here? I mean, it's just the three of us, right?
Yeah.
I am not excited in any way for Smash Brothers. Like, honestly, if Nintendo was like, at E3, our entire set booth is going to be Smash. Like, no, I don't want Smash. And I'm going to stop right here. If you want to send your angry emails to nintendodads@gmail.com, you go right ahead.
Well, I'm 100% in agreement with you. I could care less about this game. I've never liked the game. My son, though, goes crazy about it.
Yeah, and here's the other question. Jesse, maybe you can figure this out for the numbers. Does it sell that well, really? Like here's the thing. There's a difference between sell and hype, right? We have to recognize that I know there is a strong community, and there are some of you right now who are like listening to this live or in your podcast, in your car, and you're pulling over and you're screaming at me because you're like, how can you not like Smash Brothers? You're a disaster of a human being. Take a breath, simmer down. It's just not for me. I'm not good at it. I don't care much for it. I'm just not good. I have bought it on the Wii. I bought it on the Wii U. I have given it the old college try. I'm just not good at it, right? Let's be fair. I can choose not to like things I'm not good at. It's kind of like RPGs. I'm not great at them. I'm not a huge fan. JRPGs, same thing. But I could be less excited for Switch Smash. Now, I'm happy that others might be happy for it. But I think in a year, and here's my own opinion, I don't think it should be released in 2018. I think you can build the hype train maybe in 2018 with a teaser or trailer, maybe kind of like they did for Metroid 4. But I don't think it should be released in 2019. I think you need to let 2019 have some breath in there of other games, because it is a big hitter from a hype perspective. But I just don't think. I think we need to see like Animal Crossing, Metroid 4. I think we need to see those come to fruition before you bring in Smash.
Here's the thing. If it's not going to be a brand new title, then it definitely needs to be this year. But if it's going to be a brand new Smash, then sure, show the Metroid Prime style teaser, right?
Yeah.
But if you're just giving me Smash 4 with all the DLC included, all the characters, all the stuff from 3DS and Wii U mashed together, all the stages, all the costumes, all that stuff, then yeah, I'm fine with it coming this year.
So
what people need to understand is that if we're getting that, then we are not getting Smash for a few more years. Yeah. Right? We're not getting a new Smash for 3 or 4 more years.
Okay, so Justin, you were asking about how well it sold.
Yeah.
It is the 4th best-selling Wii U game.
What's the sales numbers?
5.32 million. So that's about a 33% attach rate.
33%. What's 1 to 4, by the way, just for curiosity?
Mario Kart 8 at 8.4.
Yeah.
New Super Mario Bros. U at 5.75.
Mm-hmm.
Super Mario 3D World at 5.75. And then Smash Brothers at 5.32. And that's just Wii U numbers. Smash Brothers for 3DS ended up selling like 9 million.
Yes.
So this outsold Splatoon, it outsold Mario Maker,
there's no doubt it will move units. And I think especially when you go through that list, like, okay, so Mario Kart's already done. If you're thinking Mario 3D World, let's just say you've checked that box by having Mario Odyssey. Probably from a sales number, an academic number, a business perspective, it makes logical sense. I just don't. I just don't want it. And I know that I'm probably the minority here. And here's the thing is I do tend to, and this was another one of my notes, was the online thing in September. I think you're all right. I think they have to have an online an online game to validate or to justify that cost at launch. I just don't know if Smash is it. I don't know, and if it's a port of Smash, then that could be there, Marty. Right? They announced it at E3, and they're like, we have the deluxe port Smash version, and it's going to release on September 9th, the same day as the online functionality, and boom, you're off the races.
Yeah, but if it's not
Right.
Smash, they have to have something else that's big. Because if
Yeah.
if this rolls out without a big game, it's gonna flop.
Yeah.
At least
Well,
initially.
yeah.
Kind of like
So,
when Sony first announced PS Plus, there was really no reason to get it other than getting the free games and discounted games because you didn't need it for online.
Yeah.
Not until PS4 when it was required.
Yeah. So that's my thing. That's my own personal thing. I hope they have something else than at E3 other than Smash. But then that's my own personal preference. So I understand that I may be the minority here. Marty, how do you feel about this?
I would be okay with it. I would actually be really okay with it. I mean, I like Smash. I will say I'm not like competitively good, but I can hold my own in Smash when I play it against friends or whatever. I do enjoy to play it with friends. I think it's a perfect game for the Switch to be able to take and pop off a couple of Joy-Cons and prop it up on the table and play it.
Yeah.
And my question is this, is if they don't do Smash as the game that launches the online service, what do you think they do? Because they've already blown...
Cloud saving launches your online service.
Well,
And
okay,
everyone
cloud
will pay
saving.
for it.
I know, but give me what else is my incentive? What game am I going to play online? Because here's the thing.
Estuardo
They've
in the
already
chat.
blown their Splatoon wad.
I think Estuardo in the chat has the answer to your question.
And what's that?
He says the only way that Nintendo sells 20 million units in 2018 is to have Smash or Pokemon launch. Pokemon Online is your,
Do you really think that it's that close to being done?
There's rumors. I mean, there's rumors
I
swirling.
mean, the localization rumor, right?
Yeah.
yeah, and
But
We've seen some tentative SKU holdings.
yeah, for
that's-
March.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but at least it's on the books, right? In some capacity.
yeah, so
Right.
definitely, I think Nintendo's going to want that to be part of to pay part of their online system.
I guess like with the whole Pokemon thing, like I get it, and I know that that's important, and I'm going to be excited to play it and try it on the Switch too. But like, the way that they talked about it in those videos, just when they're like, "Yeah, we're working on Pokemon for the Switch," it didn't sound like a very firm concept at all.
Sounds like someone just told us yesterday that we're working on this, so we have to do it.
Reggie's standing over there, and he's telling me, "Say Pokemon's coming for the Switch."
Well,
Yeah.
and we already knew this before even that, because we saw when like the year before when they were showing artists modeling certain Pokemon,
Yeah.
they were doing much high resolution, high polygon models, far more that was necessary for the 3DS.
Yeah.
So that was basically intended to be used in the Switch in the future.
Yeah. And the thing is, we just don't know sometimes what Nintendo has in their pocket, right? They are a company that likes to pull those. I mean, great example, Metroid Samus Returns, right? They announced at E3, 2 months later, you've got it, right? They are not a game that gives you a long scope, other than the fact they have said Pokemon is being worked on, right? Like that's and Metroid Prime 4, like that is the earliest I think they've done that kind of, like they're very rare to be like, here's a splash screen, moving on.
And
They've at least usually got something further down the pipeline.
And that's probably what takes the most of the time in a Pokemon game now is having to model and animate 800 Pokemon.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So I don't know. We'll see how this shakes out. Obviously,
I would not be upset if it was Pokemon. I would be happier if it were Smash. Let's put it that way.
Neither of those really scratch my itch, to be completely honest. But
See,
that's
yeah.
just me. Not everything is for me.
And I'm a weird one. I'm going to go with buy the online thing anyway, just because it's cheap and why not. But I won't care about Smash, and I don't play Pokemon Online anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, we talked about the online. We've talked a little bit about it here a couple moments ago, and we've got an
Yeah, it sounds like there will be benefits to having it, even if you don't care about online, like free, or free-ish selected games, maybe extra discounts. We don't know the details yet, but
Yeah,
those
like
are all
what-
possible.
Yeah, like what's the price point currently? $20 a year,
Yeah.
right? Like, and the other thing is, like, if you play, from my understanding of it, if you're interested in playing Mario Kart 8 online or Splatoon online, you need to have that,
Yeah.
right? Like, so those are things that I just randomly will play, and so obviously I need to have that. But what I'm hoping to hear from Nintendo, and this is a little bit bigger conversation. We received a very well worded, fantastic message from Scott the Geek on our Facebook page recently, who talked about the importance of Nintendo figuring out a data save solution in some capacity, right? We're all nodding here. I see Marty's got the big nod. Obviously, there's the story of Brian Altano from MVC recently, who lost a year's worth of data essentially because he had to have his Nintendo Switch fixed, and the importance that we are a year into this life cycle, this product almost. How is this not yet solved? And I don't know about you guys, but like my heart broke for Brian when I heard that, right? Like that's and I know a few months ago I had a scare where I thought my daughter erased 80 hours of Breath of the Wild, and I was just I was just about crying myself.
And you were able to load it on the bottom save.
Yeah.
Justin, to speak to that, let me show our viewers something here, if they're viewing on YouTube. This is my current Switch, and when I say current, what I mean is I have had to purchase a second SD card for all the games that I have. So right now, all of my games exist on my first SD card except for Owlboy and Bayonetta.
Right.
And there was absolutely no way Bayonetta was going on the old SD card without major game deletion.
Right.
Okay. But the issue that I'm having is not game deletion. If you'll notice here, my micro SD card has 2.7 gigabytes on it, right? Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
2.7 gigabytes of space left. Look at how much storage save I have left.
406 megabytes for those of you that are in the audio
out
version.
Of 32 gig.
And I think we talked about that a few weeks ago, that your Minecraft save is 6 gigs because there's so many worlds on it.
Here's what I did. I went in there and I managed some of that. And what I found out was that my son had started Minecraft games under 2 accounts. So he had his account, and he also had the account that I use for European eShop downloads.
Right.
And it had 2 gigs worth of saves on it.
Oh, okay.
Because every time he plays Minecraft, he thinks, I need to start a new world.
Yep.
And so we went in there and we thinned some of that down. But apparently each person's save data for Minecraft, each account takes up 2 gigs.
That's mad. That's absolutely
mad. Here's the other crazy part, though. Past that, I can't really figure out where it's gone. I'm looking at it right now. In fact,
pictures and videos on your
Minecraft. No.
I think the videos and the photos saved to your SD, don't they?
You can delegate.
They do, and I all I have is photos, and I only have about 100.
That's mad.
So I have, like, if I look at this right now, I've got 4 gigs tied up in Minecraft, and then I've got 1.3 gigs tied up in Dragon Quest Builders, but then everything else is like, 40 megabytes. Well, I take that back. Lego Worlds is taking up 3.7 gigs, which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
But like all the rest of these it's piddly, 92 megabytes, 64 meg. But like, anyway, I totally sympathize with people who are saying there's got to be something that we can do. Here's the dilemma that I'm in with this. Okay. I want to give game devs my money. Yeah. I want to play their games. I can't save their games anymore.
Yeah.
And there's no way, like, at least Nintendo, for the love of God, let me save it on my SD card.
Yeah.
That's stupid.
Yeah.
You did it on the 3DS. Why not here?
Yeah. I think out of all of, and I know that, people are asking for new games and they're asking for different tones and colors for the skins and all this kind of stuff. And and online. This, I think, and Scott the Geek was 100% right in this. This is the thing that needs to be solved first. Like if you were, if I was at work and my boss said you have 5 tasks, you have to complete them, I would always say to him, which is the number one priority? Nintendo needs to move this to the top of the priority. This needs to be data saving. This needs to be data management. Because to hear again, Brian, and I mean, interestingly enough, I mean, and let's talk about just the PR perspective there. You have a person who is on the number 1 Nintendo podcast. I mean, we're number 2, of course, but number 1 Nintendo podcast in iTunes, talking about the difficulty of this, right? And an expert, that's a bad PR spin, right? Absolutely. Like, and now I know the investors did bring it up recently in the investors call, just basically saying, how are you solving for it? But it is 2018. This needs to be solved for immediately.
Yeah. Little devil's advocate, and a reason why Nintendo isn't being quick on doing this SD card backup is that's the step 1 of the process of modding a Wii. Load a bugged save state that'll load invalid code to let you run invalid code.
Right.
Thanks, guys.
And they don't want the Switch to get modded.
You have always got to keep up with the slowest person in the bunch, right? Someone ruined it for us, so now we can't have nice things, essentially. But I get that, Jesse. But then figure out a way to do backup cloud saving, right? Where you have it's tied to your Nintendo account. You can save stuff because
But again, a 6 gig backup is going to be a pain on both the user side and the Nintendo side.
Yeah, and you've got people like me
I agree,
who
something
has
needs to be done,
limited internet.
And a lot of places have metered. Like if the Switch dumps 6 gigs and without them knowing it, and all of a sudden their bandwidth is gone for the month. Yeah. Without paying an extra $100.
There's all kinds of little things with the Switch that Nintendo has been absolutely silent on, refuses to address, and it's like at E3 this year, it's like it needs to come to an end. Like, okay, it's done. The system is a success. It's already outsold your predecessor. It's time to open up and do some things for the people who've spent all the money on this. Themes, cloud saving or saving to the SD card.
Folders.
Folders. Yes, absolutely. Allow me to arrange the home screen in a different way. And I know this is minor, but it's there, and I swear I don't know why they're doing it. Why does that home button not light up?
Yeah,
oh,
fair.
My gosh.
Yeah.
If you can make the whole disc slot for the Wii light up, you can light up a home button.
Yeah. No, you're right. Like there are things that need to be done, and I think my opinion is cloud saving is number 1. So hopefully E3 we're going to get an update. Do you guys think we actually might get an update before E3 regarding these things, or do you think they're going to continue there?
I think it's going to be E3. Like I think it's going to be here's Wii system 5.0 or 6.0, and it's available right now.
Yeah, I think they're going to release something E3 week.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because right now, like the big thing between now and E3 is Labo, right?
Yep. Yeah. Sorry, what now? I haven't heard of that. So, man, we are all over the place on this map, but that's all right.
Yeah.
Marty, any other news items we need to talk about?
Yeah, just a couple. Let's skim over real quick. The Switch version of Doom updated this week to have motion controls. Yeah. I thought that was pretty cool.
That's great.
I have Doom, and I've not tried that out yet, but our friends at Game Explain have a video over there showing the differences, and I just thought that was pretty cool. I mean, people wondered if that was going to be a thing when the game launched, and, I guess Panic Button, they added it in.
Panic Button does such a great job. I love the work they do. And that's the nice part. I'm seeing a lot of, and I'm going to take a quick, we're not going to talk long about it, but I like it when game developers are still developing and working on the games post-launch, patching in things from the community that we hear. Yeah. Rime is a great example. Rime got a huge,
yes.
I don't know if that's in your notes at all, or if you've had an opportunity to get on with that, Marty. But when you could hear it from a community saying this is an issue, and they go back and spend the time to work on it, to put those patch notes in. So often we think when a game is out, right? And we're done here. devs shake their hands, party a little bit, move on to the next thing. That's not the truth.
For a long time,
right?
That's how it used to be.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I totally think that, if you haven't tried Rime, now's a great time to jump in. But if you maybe played it before and gave it a pass over because of the issues, go back and hit it again.
Okay, I'm actually waiting for it to come down a little bit of a sale and get it physically, because I think it's a big download, is it not?
It is. It's a pretty big download.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get that one physical because I've got limited space on my SD card.
There you go.
All right, what else is in the news there, Marty?
Well, Mega Man Legacy Collection got a date this week. Mega Man Legacy Collection 1 and 2 coming in the same package on May 22nd. But there's a little twist. Capcom is pulling a Bayonetta with it, meaning that one game is going to be on the physical cartridge and one game will be a download. This time, the cartridge game is less than a gig total.
Yeah, someone
and
asked,
the game that you have to download is 6 gigs.
Oh, wow.
What?
Yeah, so
See,
yeah,
it
Mega
would
Man
have made
Legacy
sense.
Collection.
It would have made sense for them to do it the other way around.
I totally agree. Legacy Collection 1 is on the physical card. Legacy Collection 2 has to be downloaded, and if you purchase the physical copy, you get both games. There's a download code inside for the second one, and you get a special Mega Man cleaning cloth, which is an odd pack-in. But
cleaning cloth.
Anyway,
right.
Both games will also be available on the eShop in case, if you've already got Legacy Collection on the 3DS, you can get Legacy Collection 2 on your Switch. I will be purchasing this on Switch because why not? It's Mega Man and it's coming to the Switch. But I guess where I really want to highlight with this, and we don't have to spend too much time here, is this caused quite a bit of controversy. Online. Lots of people upset about it. Definitely way more people upset about it than I saw upset with Bayonetta and Bayonetta 2 for doing the same thing. Sure. In fact, I got jumped in an online forum earlier this week for saying somebody basically said, I'm out. I'm not going to buy this even though I really wanted to because I really wanted both games physically. And I kind of made the comment you're out for just one, and I know there's people who like those physical copies and I get it. I was one of those people at one time and kind of bought into digital during my heyday with the 3DS. I've got way more games digitally on 3DS than I do, physical, and it all comes down to portability. If I don't want to carry a case or I don't want to carry my games case, with me, or I don't have it and I have a game I want to play, then boom, there it is. So there are some heated opinions on this. I don't necessarily think that it's something to be all that upset about, but different strokes for different folks.
Right.
Marty, as our resident Mega Man fan, can I ask a question? Do you know, is this also coming, or specifically the Legacy Collection 2, coming to the 3DS?
From what I understand, it is not.
It is not. Okay.
So the Switch will be the only way to get Legacy Collection 2.
Okay.
Okay, so to answer questions I'm seeing in chat now because of this, one person says, why not put both games on one cart? And
I completely agree with you on that.
Well, here's why. I have an answer. Because when they do a build of the game, that build can be put on a cart and then put on the eShop. So if they want to keep both games separate on the eShop, they have to keep both games separate on the carts. Because they don't, when they do a patch, they want to put out one patch that works for both. They don't want to put out two separate patches, one for each build. The other, someone else said, why not use two carts? That's probably the better solution here. But again, that's more physical money.
Carts cost.
Yeah, carts cost money, and they don't want to go there.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
But the funny part about that is that they're buying the cart for the smaller game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And making you download the bigger one.
Again, probably cheaper cart for not for less storage required.
Yeah, there may actually be a tiered system, right? Like if you're under 1 gig and for a card it only costs you like, a penny, and if you're, over five gigs, it's 3 pennies, right? Or whatever it is, and it just becomes exponentially higher, right? This the tax, the cartridge tax, right? We've seen this obviously in some of the bigger games too, where Doom and like LA Noire had to have like 16 gigs on physical and then patched in additional.
I would imagine 2 or 4 is the smallest, and then it goes and then
the thing that I've seen most about this online, and I do have to kind of agree with it, is that this is Capcom saying, yes, we'll support the Switch, but just enough.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so, I mean, I think some of the anger there is well founded, and I think that at this point we're going to use a Southern saying here. I trust Capcom about as far as I can pick them up and throw them. But I am glad that we're getting games.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I'm glad that they are coming around now. EA on the other hand, and some other bigger publishers, I still am waiting to see what happens there.
EA did provide us Faye.
That's true.
Original.
That's
EA
true.
original.
And but also EA also announced this week a remaster of Burnout Paradise that did not include the Switch.
Yeah, that's fair. Touche, sir. Touche.
And that's about it for the news.
Shell Shock predicts that the digital sales will outsell physical sales anyway.
I completely agree.
Probably. All right, that's it for the news.
Yeah.
Again, thanks for everyone who wandered along this weary path with us. We are here. Let's jump into what we've been playing, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right. So what have we been playing? Looking at my docket. Marty, do you want to start with you?
Yeah, we can do that. Just very quickly, want to mention that I have been playing Bridge Constructor Portal, which comes out on the 28th on the Nintendo eShop. And I will just say this. I'm not allowed to say anything about it other than, and I'm not giving away anything about the game, so I think this is okay. You might want to keep a slot open for this one.
Okay, cool.
All right, if especially if you're a Portal fan, a fan of that game franchise.
So obviously, Marty, we can be looking for some additional coverage next week.
Yeah,
when Embargo
I'll do a
has
video
launched.
and it'll go up on launch day, and it'll be good stuff.
Audio on the show.
Yeah, this is a game I had my eye on, and I almost bought it on Steam because I am a fan of Portal. But I looking at the videos and the gameplay, I'm like, I don't think I'd like this. So I may give it a try.
It is a physics-based puzzler. So
it seems like it's right
like
up your
games
alley.
like that, then you'll be right at home.
This is one of those games that needs a demo.
Speaking of another game for you to keep your eyes on, and we're going back to you, Marty, in a second regarding review coverage, the good people over at Starbreeze recently sent us along a code for Payday 2, and Mr. Erickson has his hands on that one. So if you are on the fence about Payday 2, you don't really know, you're maybe, Zach will have more coverage of that next week when he's back on the show and the embargo has released, so he can talk openly about that. So if you're on the fence about either, obviously, Portal, Bridge Constructor Portal.
Bridge Constructor Portal.
I have the words. I should have them in the right order. And Payday 2. You're going to hear more from the guys going up. But Marty, what else you got playing?
Well, so this week, past weekend, I picked up Bayonetta and Bayonetta 2, the retail package for that, and have only been able to dive into Bayonetta, though I would assume that 2 follows the formula just in improving it. Right?
Yeah, because
so
from what I've heard from people who's played both, if you start with Bayonetta 2, the first one will feel really rough because they have all the improvements that they did do in the second game. So it is best that you play the first one first, because if you don't, you're not going to like it.
I wanted to play 1 first so I would at least have some context for the story of 2, right? So I'm about halfway through. I'm on chapter 5 I just finished chapter 5 going into chapter 6. And holy crap, did the last couple of chapters go through a difficulty spike. So the game starts you off with a prologue that serves as a tutorial to how you play the game. And if you've played a platinum developed game like this, and Jesse has, I know, because he played Transformers Devastation on the PS4 last year.
I'd say I tried and failed, but yes.
Right. So it's like a 3D beat 'em up. That's what you're getting with Bayonetta. 3D beat 'em up that has a dodge element called Witch Time that slows down your enemies and allows you to get in extra hits, perform different combos. I went into this very confident, almost cocky, saying, man, Transformers Devastation was not at all hard for me. And then I realized that they dumbed that down pretty well for Transformers, and that they had to, because Bayonetta is freaking hard as crap. I lost track in chapter 5 of how many times I died. It was bad. It was really bad. Chapter 5 is like chapter 4. The whole of chapter 4 is a boss fight. And then chapter 5 throws you into like all of these like mini style boss fights that just kind of end up springing up out of nowhere with some enemies that are really erratic. But here's the thing. I'm having a blast with this game. It's definitely not a game, dads, that you need to be playing around your kids.
Mm-hmm.
The innuendo is out the roof. Like within the first 5 minutes, the F word gets dropped like 3 or 4 times. There's, demons and half naked women and almost naked women and all kinds of other stuff. There's blood flying everywhere and all kinds of stuff. So it's a really violent game. And I told my son when I bought it, I was like, dude, you can't play this game. It's off limits. You don't need to play it right now. But it's a fun game. I'm getting what I expected, which is a game I can kind of switch my brain off and mash buttons and play and feel like I'm, really good at it, but I'm not. And so I think like by now, guys, most people probably know the story and concept behind it anyway, so I don't really have to spend a lot of time. What I do want to talk about is that this was a game I missed on the Wii U, and I kept going back, and I'd like go pick it up, and I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna get it now, or I'm gonna pick it up now, and I never had time, or I just never had the money to pick it up, and I'm really glad I did. I've heard that it's not been getting as good a sales right now as it did on Wii U, but I think there's probably some different factors behind that. But for $60, you're getting 2 games that used to cost $60. And comparatively have aged pretty well. Okay, nice. like they're still playable, they're still kind of relevant, especially Bayonetta 2. I mean, Bayonetta 1 is probably the one that like Jesse said, it struggles a little bit. But if you're a fan of like Devil May Cry or that Transformers game or God of War or anything like that, you need to play this game. And Bayonetta is pretty much locked down to Nintendo consoles now. Yeah. As we heard the creator just kind of been like, Bayonetta has as much chance of being on PS4 as Mario does. Was basically his comment. Yeah. And so, I mean, I think these are a great precursor to Bayonetta 3 and getting people hooked in for that. But I really feel, I'm afraid like it's going to pass under a lot of people's radar. Yeah. Because it just like Super Mario Odyssey comes out, and everybody's like, oh, Mario, they know Mario. Bayonetta is still not like a franchise, to me, is not a franchise character like that. I know some people argue with me on that, but I definitely like, if you like those games or you like action beat 'em ups, then this is a game for you. I'm having fun with it. I plan on finishing Bayonetta 2. Maybe I can talk about it a little bit later. I think I'm the only one who's playing it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. I think Zach had played it earlier on the Wii U, but you're the only Switch version of it.
It kind of reminds me of Ninja Gaiden. Mm-hmm. Because the story makes absolutely zero sense. Like those
are the best kinds.
There's just gaps in it. Like from chapter 4 to chapter 5, there's this huge gap, and like you're running into this guy named Luca who's like, he knows Bayonetta's there, but he can't see her. And so he's trying to take pictures of him, and for some reason she draws on his face with lipstick and calls him Cheshire, like Cheshire Cat. And I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. Let's skip this cutscene and get back to button mashing.
I wonder if there's going to be a payoff for that later.
Probably.
To make it make more sense. Otherwise,
I don't know.
It seems pretty random.
All I knew was I was coming out of that. I was coming out of a fight against a two-headed dragon with an upside-down face for its stomach. Yeah.
Wow.
Into her drawing on a guy's face with lipstick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anything else from any hot takes there, Marty?
No. I'm about a third of the way into Owlboy. We talked about Owlboy last week, and I'm about a third of the way into that, and just really, really, really enjoying it. Like the more I play it, the more I want to play it.
Okay. Cool. Good. Jesse, anything from you, sir?
Yeah, I pretty much have been playing Radiant Historia Perfect Chronology all week. So again, I've mentioned it before that it's a remake with additional content of late DS era game, and the thing about Atlas games in the DS era is they generally had one limited run, and so I think this one might have had a second print, but normally once they sell out, they're gone, and they're hard. So they make for expensive aftermarket games. So it's nice for this game to get re-released in a way that you can get it digitally. So it's basically it's not going to run out that way.
Nice.
So the kind of the premise is your character is it's in this kind of like a spy, kind of in a secret intelligence agency of the kingdom that you live in, and were formerly in the army and then got moved to the SI. So you start out as an SI agent, and then early on you get a choice between you want to stick with the SI or do you want to go join your army buddy and rejoin him in the army, which breaks off the two timelines that they call the standard timeline and the alternative timeline. And so the way the story goes is you go through one path until you get into a roadblock where you can't continue. So the game tells you to go back to the other path, and then in going through that story, you'll resolve the issue that caused the hang up in the first path. So then you go back and can go swapping back and forth between timelines. So like the first example of this is they're trying to go through a mine to get to the other side to try to get to the jump on the opposing army of whatever war you're in, and so they need explosives to do it. So people are waiting for the explosive merchant to show up, and never shows up. You find out that he was attacked and died. So you go back to the other timeline where you can save him, and after doing he finishes his delivery, and so you're able to then finish that tunnel. So it's a lot of going back and forth like that. So and this also adds,
kind of like Chrono Trigger in a way.
Kind of, but on a kind of more micro scale. Like you're not going back from 2021 to 12 billion BC.
Right.
But you're literally going back like sometimes as small as just 5 minutes ago to do something different. You can go back to the beginning of the game again if you want. And so you're going to have to do some bouncing back and forth. So this game also, this version of the game introduces some additional content that didn't exist in the first game, and you have the option of, when you start, to play through the original story without the new content, and then you can access it later. Which is, I think they recommend it for people who aren't familiar with the story. Or you can have the new content sprinkled in throughout the story, which is recommended for people who's already familiar with the story. So that's how I'm playing it. So there's what they call the Tower of Time or something of time. It's kind of like like a boss rush, not a boss rush, but like an enemy rush section to get more money, more experience, to get access to more items. Kind of like in the Zelda games when you have that like 100 level tower or more. Kind of like along those lines. And then the other new concept is you go to on the ship who can traverse through space somehow, magic. To traverse to alternate histories where you go to what might happen. Think, if you're familiar with DC Comics, they have 52 Earths. That's kind of like what's going on here. You're going to a different Earth that's completely unrelated to the main story, but just where a lot of things are the same, but a few things are different. You're trying to collect these artifacts that have somehow scattered across time and dimensions and timelines, and the goal is to collect these, which is supposed to help stop the desertification of the world.
Very cool.
So
it sounds like something to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, and the combat is turn based, but we're kind of like Final Fantasy. Your characters are just you choose spells and attack, etc. But the monsters are on a 3x3 grid, and like smaller monsters take up one space, larger monsters can take up 2 or 4 spaces, and so what you're able to do, you have these abilities that'll, when you hit them, they'll move the monsters to different squares on the grid. And if you have enough turns, you can stack them up. So when you attack, you'll attack every monster on that space. So the game kind of wants you to do that. If you try to do it just brute force one at a time, you're not going to get far. So
very
it's
cool.
in the past I normally don't like grid-based games, but I think this one I'm okay with because I'm not on the grid, the enemies are.
Yeah.
So that's usually where I have like the Disgaea, the Mega Man Battle Network games. When I'm on the grid, I didn't like those.
Right. Okay. Very cool. So would you recommend it?
I would recommend it
Okay.
if haven't played the game before. Definitely give it a try, and you like JRPGs. If you've played the DS version, it's a tough call whether the new content alone is enough to do a rebuy. But again,
Sure.
with most people probably having not played this with how rare it was, it's definitely worth looking into.
Okay, cool. Excellent. So that's very exciting. So some good games to look out for. What have I been playing? So obviously been gone for the last 4 weeks. There is a plethora of games. I'm only going to really focus on one, but I'm going to name out some of the games I've been playing really quickly that I have been enjoying. Super One More Jump. Check out our video on YouTube. That was a ton of fun. That's really cool. I love that game. I've been playing Shu, which was great. Dandara, which we talked about earlier because Marty was wrong. Celeste, which just is really good. We have an email about Celeste, so we're going to talk about that. Owlboy, I've just started. But the game that I'm really excited about, guys, that I have been really, really enjoying is Fae. Fae from our good friends at Zoink Games and a collective with EA Original. Now, we were actually scheduled to have Alex from Zoink Games join us today. Unfortunately, she actually has a wicked flu, so we're hoping well wishes for her, and she feels better soon. We're going to reschedule the interview, and they're going to come on maybe next week when she's in a better position. They're going to talk about Fae with us, so we're really excited for that great opportunity. But guys, I have been loving Fae. This is, and I'm going to start off by saying, when I first started, this is a 3D, and you guys have probably seen a ton of reviews about it. This is, or videos. This is a 3D open world platforming adventure game that has no dialogue, no audio dialogue, no written cues, nothing. It is all sound based, and so you start the game as this kind of fox creature, and you need to begin to explore the world. And you just kind of explore, and people are like, well, what draws you where? Well, it's open world. You kind of go wherever. But what the game does brilliantly is it gives you visual clues or direction. So when you start the game, you're playing, you kind of look around. You're kind of seeing some options, and then you see a deer, kind of just a little bit off your distance, and the deer, as you walk towards the deer begins to walk away. So you begin to chase the deer, and that begins to move you through the environment, through the level. And you're exploring this way. And the great part is you'll go to areas and you'll see these creatures, these animals, and in some cases almost like plants that you have to interact with. And to be able to interact with them, you have to sing. You sing a melody. And this is by holding one of the triggers, and you need to kind of like match tone and pitch with them to be able to use them. So this is kind of like your abilities. Now, here's a pro tip for you. When it starts off, it is on tilt control on the device. So you have to like tilt the switch a certain way or tilt your pro controller a certain way. Not fun. I did not enjoy that experience. That was very difficult for me. And when you see my Let's Play, you'll see I struggled with it. You go into the options, you turn it off, and you change it to right analog stick. And all you need to do is just use that kind of like little dial, and you find the right setting, and it works absolutely perfectly. This is a gorgeous game to explore. And I think it's really a game, again, there's no dialogue, there's no prologue. There's some visual cue prologues, right? But there's no like in the year 1942 or whatever it is, right? There's none of that kind of narrative, but you get the story through small snippets of the kind of the villains, the bad guys that you're watching or that you're going against, called the Silent Ones, who essentially are harvesting and capturing all of the creatures in the forest, and your job is obviously to stop them. And you don't have a weapon. It's not like you all of a sudden have an attack weapon, but you have to use the other creatures around you to be able to assist you, and the other animals to be able to stop the Silent Ones. It's a beautiful world to explore. The graphics I found were just really, I love that kind of stunning look to it. And of course, the sound design is absolutely amazing. For a game that's solely based on sound, it has to be amazing sound, and they hit it out of the park. I have been enjoying this game. There's Metroidvania-esque elements in that you will unlock an ability. You'll then use that ability to get to other functions in different levels. There's a lot to explore here, and it is an absolutely stunning game. I won't say it's not without challenges. There's some challenging spots for sure, and if you're a person who needs step-by-step direction, this is probably not a game for you, or if you're okay to explore and wander a bit. And if and there are some spots where I saw some frame rate lag a little bit, but I mean, I guess again, nothing that I would like, shock and awe and stun the game at. And I've seen some scores going across for this game. IGN gave it a 6.5. I've seen 9 out of 10s, 10 out of 10s. I would definitely give this about an 8 to an 8.5 out of 10. I would highly recommend this game. This is a ton of fun. It's just a beautiful experience. I think, again, it's a great experience of games telling tremendous story, right? I think Celeste is a great example of this, right? More and more games are being shown as stories and true art. And I think Celeste tackling themes like depression and anxiety, right? I think what we're seeing in Faye is the tackling of environmental impact and unity and, that kind of like Fern Gully, The Last Rainforest kind of themes and the importance of just peace, I guess, right? And the impact of kind of coming into an area and destroying it. So I would highly recommend this. Now, Marty, I think you said you might have some questions. Let me ask you, do you have any questions?
Well, yeah, like I was more just wanting to hear your impression of the game because, like, I've seen very little about it. And at first I was kind of excited to get it. And that's why I didn't, like, when I'm really interested in a game, I kind of shut myself off from it.
Yeah.
Which I did, like, with Breath of the Wild before it came out. And then Mario Odyssey, I was just like, I don't want to know anything. I just want to walk in and play it. Because I know it's going to be good. So I kind of did that with this, but then I started hearing a couple of things. I started hearing, a couple of negative reviews from big names like IGN. Mm-hmm. And then I also heard what you said, like, there's no cues. There's no, like, this is what you do or here's where you go. And so I don't need that kind of stuff, but I appreciate it. You get what I'm saying? Like, I'm the type of person who, if I'm playing a game, like say I'm playing a Lego game, Sometimes there'll be something that's so obvious that I'm supposed to do, and I just cannot do it. Like, I can't make my mind get around it because I'm looking for some weird abstract thing that's out there, and it's not. It's like all you gotta do is jump here.
Yeah, I will say there. I mean, there is a little bit of a queue system, not only from the hey, follow the deer, and that's at the very beginning, but you very early on unlock this kind of like hummingbird, and the game distinctly tells you if you are lost and you don't know what you are, like hold the sound button for a couple extra moments, and then like the hummingbird like shows up, and then like literally because they kind of like the hummingbird has like an air trail essentially. And it will like literally draw arrows pretty much like pointing, like going there or circling a very specific thing that you're like, okay, that's exactly where I have to go. So you're not wandering aimlessly all the time. You have the ability to be. So I've had times where I'm like, so where am I supposed to go right now? Like, what am I doing? Am I doing this wrong? And I'll call that. And I'm like, okay, yeah, sorry. I was supposed to be over there. Cool. So it allows for you to kind of catch up that way also. Now, without that functionality, I think I'd be a lot more lost. And you unlock that relatively soon. There is a scene in the middle, actually the middle of the game, but in the game, and I don't want to be too much of a spoiler, you've probably seen this in a lot of trailers, where you scale a large deer, a huge level, Colossus level deer, and it is absolutely gorgeous and beautiful to do. And like jumping up the tree and gliding is some of the most fun gameplay functionality in it. And those functions and those features have to be unlocked. So that's kind of, again, part of the exploration part as well. So I would highly recommend it. Any other questions? I think it's like $20, by the way, on the eShop.
Yeah. So you would say a definite pickup.
Yep, definite pickup, in my opinion. So,
awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
If you like games, I think, you and I are very similar in a lot of ways that for the games we like. I think this would be right up your alley. Jesse, I don't think this is up your alley.
I didn't think so.
No, not to make generalizations. So,
but you just did.
I just did. Those are the games we've been playing. Let's jump into the the mailbag, shall we? Got a couple questions I'd like to answer.
What time we got? Okay.
All right. So first question comes to us from Jacob Hughes, and Jacob says, "I got two things I want you guys to talk about. You guys are talking about how Nintendo could cut the price of Nintendo Switch. How about Nintendo just do just a system with a dock station and a cheap Pro controller like the ones on Amazon? It's crazy how much 2 Joy-Cons cost. Guys, could Nintendo do bundles to make things cheaper? What do you think?
Well, let's see. A Switch with 2 Joy-Cons and a dock is $299, right?
Yeah.
So let's take out the Joy-Cons, which are $79.99. So now it's $229. And you add in a Pro controller that they're selling for $69.99, and you're saving $10. Now,
so now you got about $160, I think, is left.
Yeah. So if the only way that I could probably see that working is if they were to include one of their wired controllers.
Mm-hmm.
And quite honestly, I feel like that defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
And on top of that, too, removing the Joy-Cons really takes the portability of it away. Sure, you can take the Pro controller with you and play it that way, but I can count on one hand or two hands really the number of times I've used tabletop mode.
Mm-hmm.
So I like with the Joy-Cons, like one in each hand. If I'm going to play that way, I want to be able to hold the whole thing. It just feels more solid. It feels better. Yeah,
and I think it's funny, Jacob, we can talk about this. I think Nintendo knows the Joy-Cons are kind of the secret sauce in this thing, right? And so I think that's how they can charge such a high cost for them, for sure.
And I don't know that there's anything that they could necessarily strip out of the Joy-Cons to make them cheaper, like a light version or whatever.
They could just not have the home light, home button light up.
Oh yeah, well, I mean they're already doing that.
And then, of course, we brought this up before, but without Joy-Con, you don't have Labo.
Yeah, that's a great point too. Yeah, so Jesse always brings us back to center.
It's possible though that we could see Nintendo, I think, go in a route of maybe just like, I don't know, because we've seen them do different things, with bundles in the past, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially like I think back to the NES. or they had certain bundles, that came with a light gun, or certain bundles that came with a trackpad, or the running pad or whatever. I mean, I think it's totally feasible that Nintendo could do a bundle that's just like a stationary, like home only Switch, but I don't think that's likely right now.
That's a good point.
Yeah, a lot of people are kind of thinking they might do like a Switch Junior, Switch Mini in the future. That might be kind of more along the lines of what Jacob's asking about. But again, it wouldn't be compatible with other things that Nintendo will likely want everything to be compatible with.
Yeah. It's a little bit of their long-term question or long-term outcome with it, right? Another question he asks is this, very interesting. I'd like to hear your guys' kind of quick opinions. It goes, another thing I keep hearing is how Celeste got a 10 out of 10 and so amazing, blah, 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 blah. I got it and I beat it. I like it, but thought there were way more better games out there than Celeste. Maybe you guys can tell me how Celeste and Enter the Gungeon got 10s. Great question, Jacob. I think, as we discovered, even, a great example is IGN giving 6.5 to Faye. Games and game reviewers are so subjective to the individual who gives them that review, right? So maybe Celeste or Enter the Gungeon really struck home with somebody that, really it had more meaningful, deep connection, and so they felt they could score it out of 10, right? It's not the thing with the scoring is really it's not an arbitrary statement, right? We've seen this on our show as well. I gave Mario Odyssey an 11 out of 10, right? Yes, that number's ridiculous, but because it resonated with me in a way that was amazing and fantastic, and I had feelings about it, so that was my feeling. So I think one of the challenges that I think we as game consumers do is that we so often abide by scores and look into that, and I think we need to begin to find ways of making our own decisions based on maybe finding reviewers we agree with. So a great example is like me and Marty agree on a lot of things. So like it just seems like our gameplay or the things that we like are very aligned. So if I hear Marty give a game a really high score, that kind of weighs more heavily on me then, and I don't mean to be rude, Jesse giving a game a high score, because the games that he likes don't necessarily align with what I like. So I'm more likely to weigh a little bit differently there. Does Celeste deserve to be a 10 out of 10? I don't know if it deserved to be a 10 out of 10. I think it was a good game. It was a high game, but I don't know if it's a 10 out of 10 game. And I think that you kind of have to use your own discretion. Now, interestingly enough, I think here's examples of both of this. I think major outlets like IGN, like GameSpot, like Kotaku, when they give big games or give game scores like 10 out of 10 or 6.5, they have to know the impact that that's going to have on developers and on fans and on people who purchase it. Celeste really wasn't on my radar until I saw a 10 out of 10 from IGN. And then I saw a 10 out of 10 from other people. Then I saw the hype for other people. Then I was like, oh, now it's on my radar. Maybe I don't want to miss this hype. I don't want to miss this train, this conversation everyone's in. So we jump in and buy that game. When in actuality, we may be just abiding by the sheep mentality or the herd mentality of hype, but not really what we want. And then I think when someone says it's a 10 out of 10, it's very easy for us to either say, I 100% agree with you, or I do not agree with you. Right? It's very easy to kind of be like one of those two things because you're trying to validate your own decision. And I think that becomes a challenge. I would not have scored Celeste a 10 out of 10. I would have probably scored it, in my own opinion, probably would have scored it an 8. I think it was good. I think it dealt with some good issues. But I don't think it was like perfect. And I guess, and it depends on if you consider a 10 out of 10 a perfect or just really high score. I think it was a good game, but I don't necessarily know if it was a 10 out of 10. Now, Marty, he mentions Enter the Gungeon. You've been playing Enter the Gungeon, as has Zach. Would you 10 out of 10 that game?
Here's the thing. Like, I definitely 10 out of 10 Celeste.
Yeah. Okay.
And we can dive back into that here in a minute. But Gungeon, for me, I would say is a solid 8 to 8.5, and the reason for that is that mostly comes from how much it keeps drawing me back. Even though I've seen a very limited piece of it. And what I mean by that is, I haven't been able to beat the boss of the 3rd level yet.
Right.
But I continue to play it, and I continue to enjoy it when I play it. So for enjoyment for me, like if I'm breaking down the score into different levels, then it's a 10 out of 10 for enjoyment.
Yeah.
It's a 10 out of 10 for me for like graphics, because I just love the aesthetic of that game. But are there things that frustrate me about that game? Absolutely.
Yeah. And
but the good things outweigh the bad.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons that, and I mean, and literally a couple moments ago, I said exactly what I would have scored Faye. We've always been ingrained this way since video games were kind of a thing of scoring something. What scale would you give it? And I think that's really a challenging thing to do. And I think one of the things that we've tried at Nintendo Dads to avoid, and I use our example of like an 11 out of 10. And that was actually only really because a fan asked me, like, what would you score it if you had to? We try not to tell you what a score is here. We try and tell you what our impression is of it, what our feelings are of it, what worked well for us, what didn't work well for us. But I think because we put so much weight on scores, I think that becomes unfair, because I think it can very easily deter someone or move them away from something. I would rather present to you the art or the content that's provided in a way for you to make decisions, right? I like the art style of Faye. The gameplay was this. Here are some challenges I faced with it. Here are some things I liked about it. That's my impression, as opposed to me saying, give it a score.
Kind of like the Game Explained scoring system.
Exactly.
Quote unquote scoring system.
Yeah, scoring system very much. I like it or didn't like it. I want to provide to you what my experience is, and I want for you as a consumer or as a consumer of my content, of our content, to make a decision based on that. Right?
Yeah,
I don't want it to be like it was a 7 and you're like, I was going to get it, but Justin gave it a 7, I pass. Right? Like
so
that I don't
when
like.
I do videos on the YouTube channel or when I talk about games here, the thing that I try to say is, should you get this game?
Mm-hmm.
Do I think you should pick this up? And I'll say, well, if you like this,
yes, and
you like this, then you'll probably like this. But sometimes I'll be like, you've got to like this specific type of game, or you've got to like this specific kind of mechanic, because I'm not comfortable giving a number either. Because to me, I feel like numbers are really arbitrary.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say this again about Celeste. For me, it's a 10 out of 10. But I think for the reason for some people it's not a 10 out of 10 is simply because it's not 3D.
Yeah.
Because I think we have gotten to a point in the gaming community, in the video game industry, where it's like, if it's not top of the line graphics, sound, and gameplay, then it can never be a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
And Celeste is a 2D platform, a very limited art style 2D platformer that happens to tell an incredible story. But like where I think Celeste excels and where it grabs so many people is that it is so tight in its control, and it's so well done.
Yeah.
In every area. You can't help but say this is an excellent game.
Yeah.
Now, again, mileage varies, right? Right? And I appreciate, that people say, like, they'll talk to me about being on the show, and they'll be like, I trust your reviews. And Justin, mainly what I've heard is I trust your reviews because you like a lot of the same games I like.
Yep.
And I think that is a much better score. And so I don't necessarily know that we here on this podcast or videos or whatever can ever start trading in numbers.
Yeah,
when that happens.
We've avoided that a lot. Only when we really push do we kind of say, here you go.
That's why it's hard for us to say this is why Gungeon's a 10 or this is why Celeste is a 10. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to put into words why you feel that way.
And different people interpret point ranges differently, because I think a lot of people I see think of it like in terms of your percentage scales and grades.
Mm-hmm.
Like, 60% or under is an F. So it doesn't matter if it's 59.9 or a 10, it's still an F. So so to them, it doesn't matter if it's a 2, 3, or 6, it's still crap. I completely disagree with that. I think, if it's a competent game that's just completely 100% mediocre, that should be a 5. That should be right in your middle. And then if as things do, it does better than mediocre, it should be increased. If a game has game-breaking bugs or something that doesn't even do mediocre, then you go down from there. So but like I did when I did do a review a few games for VG Tribune back, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Like I ended up giving, like I gave an old game a 9.5 because I thought it was really cool. I liked it and it seemed it had unique perspectives. And then when I gave it was like Intellivision Lives for DS, I gave like a 6.5, just because it did like the minimum requirement it needed to do to be a game, and it really didn't put much effort into it. So that's
Yeah.
And in my reviews, I explained all that. We had very verbose reviews, which I don't like writing,
Right.
which is why I don't do many game reviews anymore. But so different people use scales differently,
Yeah.
and which makes them completely irrelevant.
Yeah. Well, and my statement here, if I had to give it a score, I'd give it like an 8, right? For Celeste, some of you right now are probably yelling at your computer screen or your podcast saying like, how could you give it an 8? It's a 10 out of 10. It's perfect. But that's my opinion, right? And that's the hard part about it. And and I think it's good to hear, Marty, when people are saying, I trust your opinion. I think those are ways to do.
Yeah. Like Jim Kuzishin gave Breath of the Wild a 7-ish.
Yeah.
Saying it was a good game. It just did things I didn't like. You know, and people.
And he got crucified for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. I want to move on to our next question. This one actually comes from our new Patreon supporter, Dan. And Dan says, here's a discussion question for you guys. I help out a man with cerebral palsy in the mornings before work. His 10-year-old son is a gamer and would love to play with him. But the limited movement in his arms and hands makes that almost impossible. Can you recommend some Switch games with very simple controls, 1 or 2 buttons, or simple motion controls that have multiplayer? Thanks, Dan from Austin. Sorry, I should take a moment for that one. So one of the games that I would recommend that is, first, Dan, thank you so much for that question. Thank you for supporting the show, and thank you for bringing that forward and telling that story of a parent who wants to game, the connection that we can have playing games. I would really recommend Super One More Jump. And Super One More Jump is a one-button game where you can check out. We have a Let's Play of it on our site, but you have to basically jump and avoid running into walls. If you run into a wall, you explode. Each level has a mission of like you have to collect, or you try and collect 3 of these little diamond things, and then get a ring at the end of it, and that's kind of how the level's done. So simple one button, so it's really cool. I like that. But the really cool part about it, and this is where the 2-player experience comes in, that maybe this would be really cool, is if you're playing 2-player, you are each given a color. So let's say Marty is green and I am purple. When the game starts, it will start on the purple platform, and it's an auto runner. So it begins to start. And then the moment that Marty jumps from purple onto green, I take control in my Joy-Con. And then I have to jump. And as soon as I jump off of the green platform and land on the blue platform, Marty now takes over control. And like the control of the player bounces back and forth.
That sounds hectic.
It sounds hectic, but you know what? It's a lot of fun. And you just playing it with, I was just playing with my daughter, just sitting down. And it was like, hey, you hit your button. Now I hit my button. You hit your button. It's your turn, my turn. It's just it's simple, it's fun, it's low cost, by the way. I think the game is $10. It's from SMG and Primo, same people that did Death Squared. It's a really great example of how the Nintendo Switch can be used simply. It's a lot of fun. It's one button. I would highly, highly recommend that, especially for this 2-player option back and forth. It's called 2-player co-op on it, and it's really, really cool. Guys, any other suggestions that you guys have?
Well, I started thinking about this, and I started thinking about games that would require very little movement, or would require movement that could be paced out over a little bit of time, right? Mm-hmm. Where if somebody who wasn't able to control will would be able to take their time.
Mm-hmm.
And I came up with a couple. I don't know if they're the best suggestions, but I thought that maybe Uno for the Switch would be a great option because it does have a cooperative mode where you play on the same team against computer opponents.
Nice.
And it's actually really, really well done. And you know, it has extra decks and things, like it has a winter deck and it has a Rabbids deck that has like different cards. And so there's all kinds of different neat little things in there that I think might, you know, work for that. Another one that I thought of, and I really don't know, you guys can tell me if you think I'm a little off track with this one, was Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. And the reason for that being that there's no time limit requirements for, you know, setting your course for where you're going to move or what you're going to use, you know, like choose.
Mm-hmm.
And they just added in that versus mode.
Yeah, and there's the co-op mode already in there as well.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great example, actually, Marty. It would. And I'm trying to think, going back to it. It's kind of only just your stick, right? Like you're just choosing your direction, and then you're choosing which. I think that's a great example, Marty. Yeah.
Because, you know, I was thinking about like role-playing games so far on the Switch, and there's really not any that would be like really turn-based, you know, or anything. I know Octopath Traveler is coming out. That might be one, but it's not really cooperative, right? It would be like you could sit there and watch each other play it, you know.
Another game that maybe might land on your docket there, Dan, is a game called Party Planet. It's a compilation of mini games in there. They're usually like one button, kind of like jump or just kind of move. They're very approachable. It's usually one button offering, so that's a good one as well. Not every game in the pack for Party Planet will probably be accessible, but I think a large portion of them will be. Trying to think what else might be in there. Hey, Zach, Jesse, any from your opinion that kind of stand out?
I couldn't think of any multiplayer games, but if thinking along the lines of what Marty said about just games that have no time limit, you can take your time. If you like puzzle games, both Picross S and Pick-a-Pix Deluxe, you know, they time you, but I don't think there's any penalty for taking a long time on a puzzle. So you can just you can take your time and do things as you can do things. Yeah.
Marty, I think you're spot on with that Mario and Rabbids. That's a great option there. I think you combine that with like Super One More Jump. And in some ways, I guess Mario Kart maybe-ish, maybe not, probably not to the same degree because of motion. But I don't know. Hopefully, Dan, that's maybe giving you a couple options.
Yeah, I'm gonna, as you're kind of wrapping this up, I was opening the eShop and seeing if there was maybe something that I had missed.
Yep.
You know, that would be a good way of doing this. There's a couple of pool games that are out now on the Switch that might be a good option as well. And there's puzzle games too, and these I think kind of are the same vein of Pixel Lines DX and Puzzle Puppers, which is about really stretchy dogs.
Yeah, that actually was quite cute. Actually, I think that's coming out this week, right?
It's out. Yeah, it came out today. Yeah, I mean, I think it would just be one like where maybe you would go through the eShop and you would say, "Hey, here's this," because again, it's not like we really don't know their taste, right, in games.
Yeah.
But it might be one of those things where once some more turn-based RPGs, Lost Sphere and I Am Setsuna are out, and those are turn-based RPGs. I totally forgot those. And that might be one. Again, it's not really a both can play at the same time, but maybe they can since it may not come together so much for a younger kid. You know, Dad could be there to kind of give them hints, and maybe you go up here and maybe you do this.
I have an absolutely fantastic wife. She just sent me a message. She can hear me in the other room recording, and she says pinball. It's free, right? And it requires maybe 2 buttons. So you might be able to do that one as well with the Joy-Con. So that's pinball.
Sure.
That's Pinball FX3. could be a great example of that as well. Yeah, so some good options for you, Dan. Hopefully, let us know, by the way, Dan, how that gets on with those options, and yeah, thank you for raising that question. That's fantastic, and I think a great example of what the show hopes to do as well. All right, guys, let's start wrapping things up here. Marty, what do we need to be aware of?
Well, you need to be aware of, as I said at the top of the show, Final Fantasy VI Retro Rewind is coming up very, very soon. And so be playing through that. Finish as much of it as you can before we do the episode. And we'll actually, kind of tweet out and tell everybody when the episode's coming up. It just lets us get a little bit more time in with it as well. But you'll know when to look out for that. And next Thursday night, an hour before showtime, we will be doing our February patron hangout. If you're one of our Patreon subscribers, you will get a link to an exclusive Google Hangout we do once a month for you guys, where it's just kind of like hang out with the Nintendo dads and watch Justin pull out his headphones. And it's basically just, to shoot the breeze and hang out and have a good time an hour prior to the show. So that'll be next week. We're shooting for the last Thursday of every month. To do that. And so it actually is going to fall on March 1st, but we'll do one at the end of March as well.
Perfect. All right. And a couple things I just want to direct you guys' attention to. If you're like, hey, it's great to have Justin back, now that this episode is wicked longer than usual, sorry about that. But there are a couple of places that I have been doing some additional work. This last week, I was on Barry Dunn's show for Nintendo Impact Gaming. It's on YouTube. We've tweeted that out as well. But if you want to hear me and Barry chat more about Nintendo's first year of playing the Switch, what we think they should have done a little bit better, and then a little bit of Faye, check that out. And then I'm really excited to announce, and this actually just came out recently, is that the show If You Ran Nintendo was on hiatus, and it is now coming back. And Sean Capri is going to be the host of that show. And the reboot, the next generation, is starting this Sunday, and myself and Jacob Rush will be the first guests on the show, and he's kind of doing a revolving chair of Nintendo hosts to come in there and support it. So it's a great show. We want to support that community. If you want to hear more about what we do, you head over there. Sunday it will be live, and you can jump in and join If We Ran Nintendo. With myself, Sean Capri, and Jacob Rush. So again, supporting amazing content creators across all the fields that we're in. So guys, check those things out. All right, now I haven't done the outro for a while, so let's give that a move forward. Huge thanks to our amazing Patreon producers. We have executive Patreon producers, and you know exactly who you are. Thank you so much for your continued support. We greatly appreciate that every single month. You are amazing. And that is Marty's putting that in there right now, I think. Okay, perfect. Now, if you want to support us, you can head over to patreon.com/NintendoDads. If you want to follow us, you can follow us on all the social medias, including Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. If you want to email us, you can email us at nintendodads@gmail.com. Tell me how wrong I am about Smash Brothers. Tell me about how wrong I am about 3DS. Come at me, bro. You can also follow us on Twitch at twitch.tv/NintendoDads. Of course, YouTube, where we stream this every single month or every single week live, youtube.com/c/NintendoDads. We are putting up almost 3 to 4 videos every single week of Let's Plays, of unboxings, of talking head videos, of whatever it is. You come check it out. Subscribe, please. And, of course, we have a voicemail line that you can call in and leave us a message at 929-25-NDADS or 929-256-3237. Big shout out to OC Remix for using the music throughout the show. And big thank you to Carter Johnson and Adam Leonard for our amazing artwork. Check those guys out as well. Now, of course, you can head over to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, VG Tribune, and all those fantastic places. And, of course, if you want to change the world, why don't you try leaving a 5-star review? For myself, for Jesse, for Marty, and for a very absent Zach Erickson, thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Music in post.
There we go.
Awesome.
Thanks, chat.
Thanks, guys. Sorry that was a long episode. That's what happened.
It was a good episode. I mean, we had lots of chat engagement and good stuff.
I think so, right? I think people seem to be pretty engaged with some of that
good stuff.